Welcome to the GSMC Pets Podcast, the show that caters to pet lovers of all kinds. We'll talk about pets on social media, pets doing amazing things, and how to take care of the pets in your life. Whether your pet is a dog, a cat, a llama, hamster, reptile, or something more exotic, you'll find educational and entertaining information on the GSMC Pets Podcast.
Howdy, and thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Pets Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Sam, and of course, right across from me on his yellow blanket is my little man co-host, Eisen. He is currently sleeping, but he is close by just to let me know that he will gladly give some input in case I'm lost, I guess. He's my guiding light. Now, I have to say that I've been extremely bored, and I'm a teacher, and right now we're on our little summer break. It's going to be over very soon, but that's on top of teaching online classes before the end of the year for academic year, and then the lockdown. I've just been dying for I don't know, something really exotic. So I decided that I would go online, see if there are any interesting news for pets in general. But then something struck me. Well, what about the capybara? And before I tell you anything about the capybara, I just want to say that this was actually not inspired by an internet search. I got really bored and irritated that I couldn't find anything very interesting. So I thought back to a conversation that my husband and I we had this conversation. And that was, what if we got a capybara? So I really want to talk about what exactly to expect with these, what exactly are they, and well, to be frank, I'm going to be talking about some videos too that I saw that just convinced me, yes, this is definitely what I want to talk about. So let's get started. Now, I do want to say before I get into this that I believe I mentioned several episodes ago that I have a general discomfort and possible fear of rodents. But for some reason, that doesn't really go along with capybaras. And, well, when I say this, it's because the capybara is a giant pet. It's actually the largest rodent in the world, so you would think that I would be very horrified by it, but let's see. Has a capybara ever hid in my trash can just to burrow through it? And when I open the trash can, I've never seen a capybara lunge at me or do a desperate hop. Or, you know what, actually, I want you guys to imagine a mouse toy being tossed up in the air out of nowhere. And that is basically my experience with rodents. But a capybara cannot do that. If anything, it's, super chill, and it likes the slow life, from what I understand. Now, when I say that the capybara is huge, I definitely mean that, and I would say go online, compare the size of a guinea pig to a capybara, because you will definitely see what I mean. And just kind of put more of context around it, well, capybaras can be 39 to 51 inches long, and then it could be 20 inches tall from the foot to the shoulder. And we're going to talk more about numbers. They tend to weigh around 60 to 174 pounds. Yeah. So this all depends on the gender though. And I don't know how many people make this assumption, but in the past I always, before I, was, I guess reading about animals more and more, you would think that the male of the species would be the larger of the two. But the reality is that the capybara, the female capybara is larger than the male, which I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I imagine it's for the sake of like reproduction and nurturing their pups. But overall, it's just kind of a very interesting kind of thing to imagine. Like, imagine having like something that's 174 pounds and just kind of roaming your house, and then a 60-pound something or other in your house. And, I could say it's like Cookie versus Reggie, honestly. Cookie's like 11, 12 pounds, and Reggie's, as I think I've mentioned before, is like 56, 57 pounds at this point. She is a big girl. So I can definitely say that when it comes to possibly picking up a capybara, it'll probably end up being deadlifts instead of, full extensions. But at least with Regina, I can, kind of hold her like a little machine gun, I guess, or, or maybe just a log, because she's quite tubular, cylindrical. Yes, because we make fun of her being a sausage case. So, looking at that, you have to make sure that you prepare for a capybara that is large or maybe even small. Like, you have to kind of weed out like what are the best possibilities. Are you looking for like are you looking to have an animal that is able to cuddle you and also not eat off the table, or would you rather have like something as big as a toy poodle? So it kind of really depends on that. But all of this just goes on to say that the capybara is actually not native to North America and, well, the rest of the world. It's actually, they're actually from South America, where it's basically subtropical or tropical kind of weather, and just kind of like a boggy kind of sense, especially good for capybaras, because they basically spend a lot of time on land as well as in water. And like, for a capybara, they do need to have some sort of source of water so that they can go and just be chill, which, I mean, that's totally needed for them. But that also is an extra cost, right? So for me, our backyard is a bit small. We can't fit like a capybara sized pool for the creature, unfortunately, though they're so cute. It might mean that we buy a bigger house. No. Oh God, no. I have enough space for myself. But yeah, they are from South America, and they need to have like a very warm climate. It's kind of like the chinchilla, to be honest, where I remember my neighbor talking about them when I was like a kid in like overalls. But yeah, just chinchillas in particular cannot really survive if it's not in the right climate, basically. And my neighbor, who was a father to like a 6-year-old at the time, he wanted a chinchilla, and oh my gosh, this kind of like brings me all the way back to, when I preach and go on about, hey, maybe you should think what's best for the animal instead of what your child wants. But anyway, just kind of thinking of chinchillas, I can imagine that it could very well be the same thing for the capybara. So, make sure if you're going to get a capybara, you want to make sure that you can afford to give it the best habitat as possible. And that means having that area of water, and also vegetation, and also like things that they can chew on, like bark, because the capybara actually is born with teeth, and their teeth keep growing throughout their life. I'm trying to remember. It's kind of like the beaver, I think. Yeah, I think like a beaver. So of course they need to chew down and kind of like basically file down their teeth, or else, well, I can imagine what would happen to them, honestly. But yeah, it's even when they're like super young, they're actually kind of big too, like 2 to 3 pounds after being born. And then after that, it's just kind of, let's see, in 18 weeks, they can be as big as 88 pounds. So 18 weeks, I think Regina might be a little bit, on the earlier side of things. But Regina weighs 58 pounds at this point. She would be dwarfed by the capybara if it's like at 88 pounds. So a lot of times I always think like, okay, if this animal is going to get bigger, can I handle it? That's one thing for you to consider, because it's not always about you. But then, once a capybara like gets around a year old, the pups usually leave their parents to find new groups to live in. And like when I say this, it kind of goes into like this alpha kind of deal between males, where there are going to be fights among male capybara to be the dominant one out of an entire group. And I'm mentioning things like groups and stuff, but it just kind of goes into how sociable capybaras are. They have to be with other creatures, other animals, and preferably another capybara. And a lot of people that sell capybara honestly say that if you're going to get one, you may as well get two, so that they have a companion, and also so that they can learn from each other about, what is good, what is bad for capybaras in particular. Which, yeah, sure, that definitely makes sense, but also another expense, right? So then on top of that, you have, in the wild, capybaras can have 10-member groups, and during the wet season, they can actually have a group contain about 40 members. Yeah. And then up to 100 members during the dry season. So it's a very big gathering of these capybara, and they could have a single group home could be 5 to 494 acres. Yeah. So you have such a huge population, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's a lot of capybara. But I would have to say that in addition to the cost of getting multiple capybara, and then basically the pool that you have for your capybara, and then also making sure that the green space in your backyard is not toxic to them. So that is more research. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that basically a capybara is going to require money and also research. If you're not willing to put that into raising a capybara, then maybe you should reconsider. I mean, it's cool to say, oh, I have a capybara, and then you get to talk to other people about, oh, how cool it is. But it's not all about you, remember? So I can definitely say that when you have your green space in the back, you should definitely make sure to include melons and squash, and let's see, what else? Any kind of grain to help them, supplement their diet, because they would typically just eat grass. And I think there are a lot of capybara that have about 5 types of grasses that they eat. So that's pretty intense. You won't need to mow your backyard, at least. especially if you have 2 capybara. But yeah, overall, like, the capybara is pretty adorable. Again, I'm looking at this picture right now. It's so cute. But a baby capybara, and I'm assuming it's mother. And the mother's just kind of hanging over this little one, looking very protective. And man, I feel like there's more than guinea pig in this creature, and I just want to know more. But one of the positive things about capybara, or at least some good news about them, is that they're at least concerned for being extinct. So there's plenty of capybara. That's not a reason to go get yourself a capybara, because again, you have to do research and you have to put in money to it. But yeah, I would have to say that that's definitely a positive if you want to look into having a pet capybara, but that should not be your main reason for getting one. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys like a fact about capybaras, because I had mentioned that they really like being in the water, and they split their time basically between water and land. Now, a capybara going underwater, they can be down there for up to 5 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes. I can't, oh my gosh, it's been a while since I've been in a pool, for goodness sake. And I would freak, well, okay, surprise, surprise, everyone. I also have a mild fear of being in a pool. So, yes. So I can't imagine myself managing that, but it's very cool. And I don't want to say it's like a competition to see like who holds their breath the longest underwater, but you know, capybara is probably going to win. Just saying. Now, in addition to all of this, like, especially with its experience going into just being underwater for a long period of time, like, they're actually known as, like, water hogs or swamp hogs, so in addition to capybara. So if you have a little kid that can't say capybara, you can just say, oh, sweetie, you can just call it a swamp hog or a water hog. It'll be okay. It's the same thing. But, yeah, it's just kind of it's a very interesting kind of experience, having a capybara and then just kind of knowing where they come from. Like, apparently in, like, South Africa, like, an Amazon tribe actually referred to capybara as, like, the master of the grasses in their native language. So, I mean, whoa, okay, I want to know more. But anyway, we are going to move on, and we're going to talk about, well, just how to care for your pet capybara. And I think that's a very important thing to really consider, especially because it's an exotic pet, and there's going to be like extra work into making this pet happy and living a fulfilled life. Anyway, we will be back after this commercial break, and well, I'm gonna go pick up Cookie because, well, she's been calling for me for a good solid 10 minutes. Anyway, we'll be right back.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
We are back, and well, you know, I'm actually getting very excited about talking about capybara, and I want to have this conversation again with my husband to see if maybe we could get a capybara. But in addition to that, well, you gotta do the research and really consider what sacrifices are you going to make. Also, checking if it's legal in your state, if you're in the United States, very important. Now, let's talk about how to take care of pet capybara, because as I said, they're exotic animals. They probably have different needs than the typical domestic house cat or dog. So, one of the major things that you have to do if you're getting an exotic pet, you definitely need to find a vet that specializes in rodents and exotic animals. They're usually healthy in captivity as long as they receive proper care. And working with your vet will help you come up with a good plan to keep your capybara healthy. And it's like any typical pet, to be honest. You want to make sure that it doesn't have any parasites in it, that it's well fed, that it's given a good exercise, and regular vet visits for vaccines and stuff. Because, well, you're keeping a wild animal in your home. You want to make sure that you do your due diligence to have a healthy environment for you and also for the capybara. Now, I had mentioned too that, well, capybara is like water and also land. And one thing that is suggested in this animals.mom site, oh wow, one of the things that it suggests here is that you need to set up a habitat with food, shelter, water, and room to wander. They can reach 4 feet in length, as I said, and just imagining a small backyard for a large capybara that's kind of squished with a water area, a little pond area for them to hang out in, and just kind of all kinds of foliage and greenery. You need to make sure that you have that, but you can't make it cramped. You can't. It's like pushing a square block into a circular one. If it's not gonna fit, it's not gonna fit. Same thing with any living thing, actually. It makes me think of the ASPCA show. When was that? Several years ago. Again, when I was in elementary school. But there would be commercials and episodes where there would be a house full of 70 cats in an abandoned house where a woman or man has just hoarded them all and just had many pets. I'm not going to say crazy cat lady because, well, there's a love there, right? No, you really should not have that many cats. You will not be able to handle it, especially if you're a little lady or a kid. I'm not saying that adults, young adults and up to your 40s, 50s, it does not mean that we can handle it either. So, again, if you have, side note, if there's a place that has a lot of pets that you kind of wonder, is everyone okay in there? Definitely check it out. See if, maybe a shelter could come and visit, and hopefully it would not escalate to the animal rescue that you used to see on Animal Planet. Is this still Animal Planet? I feel like I've been wondering this for a while, so I'll definitely look this up, I promise. But yeah, again, a square block does not fit into a circle, so do not force it. Because again, it's not about you. It's not about you saying, hey guys, hey neighbors, I have a capybara. No. It's about the capybara. Is the capybara happy? You want to make sure, just taking care of something. If you had a child, if a parent had a child that didn't really seem comfortable in the house, maybe it's a cramped house, you're going to have to adapt. Your number one priority is to keep that kid happy, right? And healthy. So, I'm not saying that wild animals and kids are the same thing, though, I mean, metaphorically, yes. But definitely, the treatment that you give to your pet should be kind of similar to how you would give attention and needs for kids. But yeah, you need to have like year-round shelter for your capybara. Same thing with a kid. Need a roof over your head. But like it's talking about like a shed or a large doghouse, and having like hay bedding will help your capybara actually stay warm in the colder seasons. So actually that makes me think of, when it gets colder, I'm going to tell you guys about some hacks to help your fellow feral cats in your neighborhoods. But back to capybara. Now they are generally fine with hot weather. You should probably keep like a water bowl in the shelter and also outside the shelter, just to make sure that they can stay hydrated and cool, and like just to minimize the amount of the possibility of them growing ill in like extreme heat. Take them inside. Have them hang out in their shelter, or again, take them inside. Which makes me want to scold people again. Do not leave your pets or children in a car by themselves. Okay, moving on. So I've mentioned the need for like a water area, and this list that I'm looking at actually suggests like having like a swimming hole that's at least 3.5 feet deep. But it can definitely go deeper if you are more inclined to that. 'Cause again, capybara is semi-aquatic, so you want to make sure that those needs are met. And did I mention that, all this goes into dollar signs? Yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys are thinking that too. It's like, wow, this is going to get really expensive. How much are capybaras anyway? I don't know how much they are, and I will probably look it up for later. Let's see. So, in addition to, a good backyard area, making sure that you have a strong fence that's at least 4 feet high and leaves no room for escape. Because, well, capybaras don't usually dig, but they find ways to squeeze themselves, like, out of their homes, pretty much. So, just keep that in mind. It's basically like that with, like, dogs, too. But dogs are, they're definitely known for their digging. Now, when it comes to the capybara's diet, as I said, it's purely vegetarian, and again, just a lot of grass. So I had mentioned also the need for bark because, well, the capybara's teeth continuously grow through the rest of its life. So pretty much just provide them with like sticks or branches or bark, anything like that to have them like file down their teeth. And I don't know, just there's a lot of stuff that you really should know about the capybara. And I mean, when it comes to just taking care of them, you have to think, well, how am I going to maximize its like 12-year lifespan? And that's kind of ballpark for them. So you need to see how are you going to maximize this, and then also how are you going to maximize its social needs? Because while you can just be your capybara's only social link, that is not ideal, as I have said. So definitely don't put two male capybaras together because they will fight. Mostly because, hey, well, I want to be the dominant one and you are not. So all these things you have to consider, like just the dynamics of animal groups and boundaries too, because, well, there have been reports of capybara actually biting people, but again, there's always a way to approach it. I know that J.K. Rowling has been canceled, but the first thing that comes to mind is when Hagrid takes the students out to meet the hippogriff, and you had to be slow and respectful in approaching it, or else it would attack you. I would imagine it's very similar to the capybara, but I don't think you have to bow to it. But if you want, you can definitely bow. So all this kind of stuff, you need to, pull in together so that you can make a very happy environment for your pet. And just in general, I guess I get kind of like nervous too with the idea of like, is it legal? Like, I don't know if my state actually allows capybaras. I do know that I believe that my county where I'm at does not allow hoofed animals. So, that means I can't get a goat, unfortunately, or cow. I could probably get some chickens. I think I already mentioned this, but I think like one of my neighbors has like a little chicken pen in their front yard, and they have a really big property. So whenever I get a chance, I go and hang out. Well, not go and hang out, but I just take a peek and see if the chickens are still hanging about and stuff. Now, I do want to say that after all of this money that you invest in it, I've seen just different kinds of videos that show how capybaras can be a great pet. I mean, I just can't. Again, you have to be able to like hop over that obstacle of like financing it, and then you also have to be prepared for ways to adapt to different behaviors or needs that your capybara might have. But hey, that's something you need to do your own research on. I am just giving you the groundwork of it. So I think that it is probably about time to take a little break. And next we are going to be talking about just more of like socializing your capybara. And this could be with like a dog, cat, or other capybara, or people, I guess. But we will be right back after this commercial break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, and I hope at this point you all have taken a second, not if you're driving, to look up pictures of capybaras and maybe even run into videos of capybaras being adorable, and that's what we're going to be talking about now. And we were just talking about how to, care for your capybaras and honestly the expenses for it, which is definitely a huge consideration before you get a pet. But yeah, you kind of are trying to, at this point, see what kind of other animals can be with a capybara. And when I say this, well, again, capybaras are a very social kind of animal, and they typically go in like groups of at least 10 at times. So you can't have or if you have a farm, you could have a capybara farm, but most people can't afford and do not have the space for 10 capybara, right? And, I'm talking to the 98%, the 99%. Who knows what the 1% does with their money. I just hope that that is reasonable, and if they do have capybara, they are being treated well. So, anyway, there is a video online of basically this cute little capybara and a cat just kind of hopping on top of it as a capybara is laying down like on the sidewalk. And this is like it seems like it's in a country in South America, because I had heard, I think maybe some Portuguese in the audio in the background. So probably Brazil. And just kind of looking at this video, it's just this cute little black cat. He's crawling all over the capybara and getting comfy. And this has to be a huge thing to happen, honestly, because, well, if you have a cat that's kind of kneading at you, usually it hurts for the most part. Especially if you have like bare skin, which a capybara does not. It has a nice little brownish cinnamony kind of fur. But yeah, it's just, it takes a lot of patience for anyone to have a cat like crawl onto you and then like kind of make biscuits, pretty much. Now, this capybara was actually totally content with it, and surely you guys have watched some Tom and Jerry in the past, or like a Looney Tune that is very, very similar to it, because I'm thinking of like this big American bulldog, and he's just so taken with this little cat that he, just kind of lets him be his little buddy. And there are different scenes, because this is a recurring duo, actually. And, like, whenever the dog goes and takes a nap or just kind of lies down, the little kitten, like, crawls up on him and makes his little biscuits. And, you see the little bit of pain in the dog's eyes. But, yeah, it settles down and is perfectly fine, honestly. And this video that I'm talking about actually shows the capybara just kind of chilling, and I think that honestly, with a cat on your back and nailing at you or clawing at you a little, you would think that you would lose patience quite fast. Eisen, I love him to death, but if he gets on me and starts kneading at me, I have to get him off at some point. Now, for this capybara, it was just kind of like, oh, yeah, I'm chill. Don't worry about it. And eventually, as he was rolling around, the cat decided to leave, and then it lived happily ever after. But that's just kind of a way to demonstrate even animals that are not necessarily the most sociable, with cats, and just kind of putting them together with a very sociable animal. Like, it's definitely fine depending on the cat, depending on personalities and just dynamics. But just by that observation, it looks like a friendship between, or camaraderie between a cat and a capybara is very much so possible. And now I'm going to talk about this next video, because it was adorable. Now, and this also just kind of puts the capybara to scale. And it was a video of the capybara and like two other dogs. Both of them were herding dogs. So they're very active and they're like a mid-sized breed, I would say. But yeah, the capybara was just as big as those dogs, which is insane. I can't get over how big they are. But typically when it comes to animals, approaching animals, it's usually touch and go. But again, I want to emphasize, like, if you approach a capybara slowly and you give it space, it will definitely warm up to you and it won't bite you. And I believe that's what happened with these dogs with this capybara, because the dogs approached him and just, I don't know, it became a little love fest, I feel like. Like the capybara was like cuddling and, you know, kind of licking at one of the dogs, and the dogs would just kind of hang out and chill. And all of this is really focused on socializing your animals. You know, making sure that your dog is socialized with other dogs and people. I don't really know what to say about cats, but, you know, at least trying to socialize them with other cats, and also with you as a pet owner. So, but yeah, that video was very telling about how you can get, you know, your dogs to get along with the capybara. And this also kind of goes into like children too. Like, it's recommended that you wait until maybe your child's like 12 years old and up to get a capybara. One, because like younger kids, well, they pull, they tug, they shriek, they run towards things without thinking about it. All of these kind of stuff. And that's not ideal for a capybara. Like, that is just harshing its chill. You don't want to do that. So it just kind of, it's very important to keep a very comforting, zen kind of household for your capybara, because, like, they like to just chill in the water, man. They just want to enjoy their lives and swim around, eat your grass, and then just be pet. Because they are that kind of social animal where they seek out ways to get affection and ways to feel like it's accepted into a group. Like all animals, honestly. And when I think of that, my heart just kind of flutters a little bit, because, again, I really want a capybara, but I need to figure out how is that going to work in my backyard. We will see. I'll probably go over to my husband and be like, sweetie, can we go get a capybara? And then I will say, but first, before we do that, can we put a little pond in our backyard? And then my husband will say, well, aren't we going to be planting vegetables and have a vegetable garden? And then I'll be like, oh, I guess so. Maybe we could put chicken wire and all that kind of stuff. Just, oh my gosh, I am planning out this conversation at this point so I can have a capybara. Which, honestly, when you compare the capybara to my very first episode with you guys, the raccoon, I mean, both of those animals, and some of the sources that I found, are recommended to not have, because they're going to be difficult pets. But I've generally seen with the capybara, like, because they also don't have opposable thumbs, like, it's pretty much, I would probably lean towards the capybara than the raccoon at this point, because raccoons are like little crazy little animals, right? But for the capybara, they seem calm. They don't really, if you approach them with respect, they will approach you with respect. And maybe it's like a giant dog-like thing with a cat temperament. Maybe. Again, it all depends on the different types of environments that your capybara is in. And also just how you build the environment around them. Because you can't take something and put it into, like, a house and hope that it fits in. Like, this exotic wild animal has like very specific needs. And I keep on going on about this. You need to make sure that you're willing to put your money into it. Now, just kind of getting back to these videos, like the single video with capybara and the dog. Well, just, it looks like the capybara is, generally enjoying its environment, but it's indoors, so it can't really just kind of go about and explore, or even like find their own veggies to eat, right? So essentially, for this particular video, I would imagine that the capybara is like leash trained and it goes on frequent walks, because it looks pretty calm indoors. So you know how most animals are, especially like young puppies. They get so built up with energy that they start acting out if you're missing out on like important exercise. So I'm just going to assume, based on what I see, what I observe of this capybara, that it's happy, it is stimulated, it has friends, and just, it's not in danger of like making your house explode, right? So I imagine that if I were to get a capybara, I don't know if Reggie would be a good partner for it if I got it. Because, well, Reggie is still very much so a puppy. She's, we're gonna have her for like a year in August, my God. But, yeah, Reggie just has like this big personality. She's very loud. She likes to just jump in and play, which to many, many, many creatures is a lot. Like, ever since, like, before we got Cookie, it actually happened like the day of Cookie entering our family, but like we were going to see like another dog to have in our household so we could get Regina socialized, and socialized well. And like the dog immediately did not like Reggie because Reggie was always jumping at it, and it just, and I think at this point Reggie was like half of its size, but Reggie didn't care. She just wanted to play with the dog, and she didn't know what was appropriate dog behavior and what wasn't. So again, if you have pets already, make sure that their temperament will work well with a capybara, because you don't want it to be miserable. It needs to be social. And if you have other pets that are not very social or not as well trained or respectful of distance, then, well, miserable capybara probably destroys your home, and and everyone is traumatized by it. But again, I wish there were more videos of capybaras and in dogs and cats. Also parrots. Ooh, let me do a quick search. Capybara and parrots. Oh, and crocodile. What? Oh. I don't know what to say. I'm not going to look at it because I'm afraid that it'll lead to something kind of tragic, and I really don't want tragedy right now. But yeah, if you wanted to see more videos of capybaras like getting along with each other, like they seem to be very well liked in the animal kingdom, just what I'm observing here. And like even there's like a video right under the capybara versus the caiman. Like, why do animals like capybaras so much? And one after that, capybara are the friendliest animal. And let's see, making friends with a capybara, like all of this kind of stuff, well, makes you want to have a capybara because, well, just you have so much, I won't say evidence, but so much information presented, very much so focused on experience, just kind of showing like how a capybara can fit into your life. And hey, if you want, before you start seriously considering getting a capybara, just hop onto YouTube, see how other people are treated, and how they make the capybara like fit in their lives. But anyway, we are going to take another break. Oh, I know, it's torture. But we are going to talk about this famous capybara, or at least I'm assuming he's famous, because at least in the Los Angeles Times, they did a report on them. So Caplan Rose, I think. And we will talk about that famous capybara after this commercial break.
Is weird, odd, strange? strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea, then the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Welcome back, and pretty much I just wanted to hop into this next story of a capybara that's quite famous in Los Angeles, well, at least for the Los Angeles Times to cover. And, all this after I was just kind of, fangirling over all the, those two videos of capybaras with, dogs and a cat. Oh my gosh, it's so tempting to, push my husband to say, hey, let's get a capybara. But again, self-control, Sam, self-control. So the capybara that we're going to talk about today that's referenced in this article is actually Kaplan ROUS. And the ROUS part is actually spelled ROUS. And if you're a fan of The Princess Bride, then you will definitely connect rodents of unusual size. So it makes sense. It totally does. And it also is very telling about the owner too. But yeah, basically, the story starts off with the owner, Melanie Tapaldos, and her daughter going on a trip to Venezuela. And then, her daughter just kind of got to hold a baby capybara and just fell in love. Oh my gosh. And when they got home, her daughter was like, I want a capybara, I want a capybara. And I don't know how old the daughter is. It's not mentioned, but I would think that, definitely a child that's still at home and not going off into college quite yet. But yeah, so at some point, Tapaldos goes on and finds a capybara, and she found this one, Kaplan, in Texas. And I don't really know what part of Texas, but this capybara was born there, and it seemed like a good enough climate for them. It all depends on where exactly you fall in Texas, to be honest, because that's a big state. So once Kaplan was brought into the family, it kind of really became a huge part of it. And it's the same thing with a puppy. You have so much more responsibility at the very beginning because you're essentially taking care of a little baby at that point. And there are a lot of needs. They're still learning. So Tapaldos would actually bring Kaplan to work. But people started complaining about the smell and stuff, so she decided to take a vacation and was there to help socialize Kaplan. And, I wish we all had that ability to take vacation to socialize your pets, but unfortunately, that is not the case here. But, so when it comes to, we'll say Kaplan in captivity, it's very different from actually interacting with other creatures. I don't know how many capybaras Kaplan was with when he was born, but it doesn't really sound like Tapaldos was really considering the social part, and I think it was all part of that learning curve for her. But yeah, the great thing, there's so many cute pictures of Kaplan too. One is of him, in, basically like a horse. like basically the reins around him, and he has a saddle on the back, on his back, and it's just so cute. And honestly, Tipaldos kind of makes me think of Ellen in a very strange way. It's hard to really explain at this moment. But again, back to capybaras. One thing that Tipaldos definitely states is that your capybara, you shouldn't have the same expectations of their responsiveness to dogs, because, well, totally different animals. And like for the capybara, it'll do a trick or start learning a trick based on the desirability of the treat that's being used. Because if you just gave like a small cookie-like thing, I don't even know, but like just something that they can chew on, like they may or may not like it, and if you ask them to sit, well, probably won't sit because it wasn't good enough for them. And, well, dogs, they basically love almost everything that you have in your hand. So, definitely very different, and I just kind of think that it's very reflective of just the slow domestication of capybaras. Like, dogs have had years and years and years of just learning to be subservient to humans, right? And it just kind of, I imagine that it'll take a long time before capybaras actually become domesticated, or if it's even possible for it. I mean, we used to think that with cats too, right? But yeah, for Tipaldos' capybara Kaplan, like, he's basically like an indoor pet, which, I mean, that's a little difficult for me to imagine because of all that I've already talked about already. But she makes sure that there's like a pan of water in the bathroom that he can like void himself. And I mean, that takes a lot of effort to, basically litter train a capybara. But again, it seems like they're trainable with the right incentive. So you have to kind of hit the sweet spot there. So generally for outdoor space, it's typically for grazing and also swimming in his pool, for the most part. And like they just kind of like escape. Like Kaplan too, you can definitely make the assumption that he goes into the pool just to get away from people or things that are kind of sketchy to him. So more of like predators, right? So a lot of predators, they're usually deterred by getting into water, right? So it's very interesting I'm probably going to look up more videos of capybaras actually, because I really want to see one just chilling and sleeping in the pond or whatever, just to kind of get a bigger picture of it. And like, also they kind of are the most active in water, pretty much. Like they say over here, Tipaldos says that on land, Kaplan's not very active. When he's in water, he's like another animal, and that's where he's happiest. So, with that in mind, just a reminder, make sure that you have like a pool area that your capybara can, enjoy life for the most part. Keep that in mind. Now, there are like a lot of cute pictures of Kaplan in this article. He looks so regal and calming, like this very wise and sophisticated kind of aura around him, which, I mean, could be totally different in real life and not through pictures, right? But yeah, there's no way of knowing like how many like private individuals have capybaras, but like the breeder that worked with Tipaldos, like apparently he sells like 5 to 10 of them a year as pets, which is insane. Like, I want a capybara. How much is it? Again, have to think about the additional costs too. But yeah, you can find them like on the internet, to basically kind of get an idea of like, okay, how much is it and what do I need to do? But yeah, generally it's just kind of just kind of a digging game, to be honest. And apparently there are a lot of, people that you can go to just kind of get advice on that. And, well, the thing is that what really makes Kaplan so special is that Tapaldos kind of approached this in a very unique way. And she spends like a couple hours a day like updating Kaplan's internet presence, which is a blog. And also there are social networking websites that are updated for him too. And gosh, we don't even do that for Eisen. We adore that man. So maybe we should start reconsidering how we present him. Maybe I can start an Instagram for Eisen. Maybe. We'll think on that. But, there's so much time that you have to devote to a capybara. And, like, it really depends on, like, how much time you want to spend with it. Tapaldos is like, I spend all my time with him, but that's a matter of choice. So, I mean, I wouldn't say treat it like any other pet because they are quite social. But just, be there for it when, it seems like it wants, like, social interaction. Or else, well, dang, it's gonna be lonely. So, there apparently is, like, a game that, Kaplan plays. One of his activities that he has in an interactive game called Rodent Jeopardy. It's apparently very educational, and it's a lot to do with getting to know what it's like getting a capybara, and just facts about them too. I kind of want to play that game now. So, it's not for the faint of heart for capybaras, and just for Tapaldos in general, she has a background in biology and she keeps horses and other reptiles. So she can definitely make Kaplan live very well in her backyard or just in her land in general. I imagine it's kind of secluded where she's at. But just kind of giving the best possible space is important, always important. And that's something that I've noticed with a lot of the sources about capybaras, and it seems like Tapaldos puts so much thought and effort into like making sure that her capybara Kaplan is going to be happy. And apparently, Kaplan has become some sort of ambassador, because, he's a rodent, and for the most part, people don't really like rodents. I struggle with it, as I said earlier. But Kaplan is a different type of rodent. Capybaras are a different type of rodent. That doesn't really make you think, oh my gosh, that's a rodent. Ew. No, you're actually seeing like a giant guinea pig that you can just kind of take a brush to and occasionally brush it. I don't know if you should do that or not, but I mean typical grooming stuff, and just kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say that rodents are stigmatized, but Kaplan becomes quite a good face for rodents in general. So if people can accept Kaplan as a face for rodents, maybe eventually people will be more open to adopting rodents, right? And maybe not, probably not capybaras, but different kinds. So like ferrets, hamsters, guinea pigs, all that kind of stuff, rats. But yeah, just kind of being open and honest about her care for him is like a huge part of Kaplan's blog, right? So just kind of like a big emphasis on, hey, you don't like rodents, but let me try to change your mind. And, just kind of giving stories and stories, because honestly, just for me, I'm so motivated. I don't know. I don't want to say I'm motivated by pictures, but pictures, for the most part, really, they kind of give me a lot of information. It gives a lot of people information, but I know that I shouldn't totally rely on pictures and images. But just based on what I'm seeing, especially for Tapaldos and in Kaplan, it seems like they have found a way to live together and to maximize their way of life. And I don't know. Now the last picture, I say, darn you. It's a picture of baby Kaplan being bottle fed. It's really cute. Definitely check it out. But yeah, oh my gosh, time went by pretty fast. So I, again, appreciate you guys sitting and listening to me like have a little ramble fest about capybaras. Oh my gosh. But I do want to say thank you for tuning into the GSMC Pets Podcast. And again, we were brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And well, again, Instagram and Twitter, also Facebook. Please check us out. Give us some support. Also, click subscribe and also give us reviews. I love reviews. I mean, I try not to beg for reviews, but at this point I'm kind of begging. Anyway, I wish you guys a wonderful night, and again, thank you so much.
You've been listening to the GSMC Pets Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's podcast.